In your approach to strategy development, how do you define strategic planning?
I want you to imagine that all businesses are on a certain trajectory. They have a plan that's going to take them from A to B. Strategic planning is about thoroughly understanding the business environment within which you're operating and putting in place significant interventions that are going to significantly change the trajectory of your business to a point where you're providing more value to your chosen set of customers. It's really about ensuring that you are maximizing value to a specific group of customers, and it's not business as usual.
What are the biggest challenges that most organizations face with strategy development?
The issue is really not around strategy development, it's around strategy execution. And I'm going to give you one answer, one word: lack of leadership. Most organizations do not have the leadership capability to execute, and that's the biggest challenge. The second one is employee enrollment in the business plan. We've got to remember that while leaders in an executive team might be good at doing strategic planning, leaders do almost nothing to execute a plan. Execution of a plan happens on the front line with those employees who are facing the customers. So if you really want good strategic execution, you've got to find a way to fully enroll and engage your employees who actually have to deliver the service to your customers. So the two biggest challenges: lack of leadership and leadership execution, and not enrolling employees fully.
I think many organizations go through the leadership process because it's something that we have to do once a year. So they go through the process and that's it. And then a year later they go through the process and that's it. Yeah. But very little actually happens, and we see it so much, way too much. And they get frustrated because it's like, okay, it's business strategy time again, and they go through the process and they don't really execute as well as they should.
Mm-hmm. If I may add to that, Eitan, I think one of the reasons that companies have so much difficulty executing is that they just set too many objectives at the beginning of the year. They are just so ambitious. And what happens is they end up nudging each initiative forward just by a little bit. There's a beautiful terminology I read on this. It says lots of takeoffs but very few landings. And that's a big challenge for organizations, way overcommitting and under-resourcing their business.
What is a vertical business strategy, and how is it different from other business strategies?
A vertical business strategy ensures that leaders are looking at their business as a systemic whole, where they're looking at their strategy for competitive advantage and how their business can maximize value to a very selected group of customers. It defines which customers they'll work with and which customers they won't. The second component is it looks at, have we got the organizational capability in place? Are we aligned with all our systems, our processes, our structures, our roles, our policies, our procedures, our disciplines? Are those all aligned with the strategy? Because in many cases you can find a misalignment. The third component is, have we got the human capital, particularly the leadership capital, to deliver that strategy? If you don't have the absolute best people using the best processes and systems to deliver the strategy, there will be a breakdown within your execution. And the fourth component, which is absolutely critical to all three, is, have you created a vertical culture which will ensure that the way people behave within this business is in alignment with the whole strategic alignment triangle?
And the vertical culture is what gives this vertical strategy so much of its power. Mm. Because by adding the component of corporate culture, vertical culture, it ensures that the company and the organization is able to then execute because of the culture that is supporting it. And that's when we take clients through our 3-phase execution process to ensure that it actually happens in practice, not just remains on paper.
Because for many organizations, what they do is they go through a 2 or 3 day strategic planning session on a once a year basis, which is a minimalistic amount of time to be spending on strategy development in the first place. And then they really struggle to execute. So we've developed a 3-step process to help with execution. The first step is taking that strategic plan and breaking it down into a very limited number of goals for the first year. And we recommend no more than between 5 and 8 goals. We cascade those 5 to 8 goals into very, very clear deliverables for each individual, so that I've got a performance accountability plan that I've got to execute with milestones, timelines, methods of measurement, etc. That's phase 1. Phase 2, we actually do an organizational review to ensure that when we look at all the goals that they've got to achieve in that given year, do they have the resources appropriate? Do they have the right span of control with those? Are there the right number of layers within the organization? And is the business structured correctly to deliver on its strategy? And then we go into the third phase here, which is what we call performance accountability meetings. And these are to ensure that the organization has in place a process, a very disciplined process, where they're going to have leaders report out by business unit on exactly what they've delivered according to plan. And this is part of the cultural part. Many organizations don't have a culture of execution. And so execution must be part of your strategy. And that's what differentiates ourselves.